I'm here with my friend, the Reverend Eric Posa, who I have been soul friends for many years and prayer partners with for about 2 years.
About 2 years now.
We had known each other for several years, and then we got partnered up for the Whose Are We curriculum that a lot of Unitarian Universalist churches and organizations are doing. But after that, we both got so much out of it, we said, we don't want this to stop with this program. And so at that time, we lived about 2 hours away from each other. So we found a middle place, Camp Allen in
Navasota, Texas.
In Navasota, Texas. And so we would drive and meet there, and we were in a place kind of like this, where we could engage some of those questions. And we decided we needed kind of a guidebook for this. And
I had found a book by the spiritual writer Henry Nouwen on spiritual direction. And the book was set up with a series of questions. Each chapter was a question. Who is God? Who am I? Where do I belong? And so each time we would get together, we would take one of these questions, read the chapter ahead of time, and do some deep reflection on what our response was to that question.
And I think what really appealed to me in doing this was that these were not philosophical questions that we could be distanced from, that we could just argue intellectually. It was questions that made us go into our own experiences and what we felt to be true. And so that was a great experience. And I don't think we planned, I don't think we ever said, okay, we're going to pray, or we're going to be prayer partners. But it just kind of naturally happened as a result of these questions.
The entire experience, the entire hour we would spend once a month walking through trails like this in the woods, felt like an hour-long prayer experience. It was, well, one of the things that's often said about prayer is there are different kinds of prayer. They're based on the different kinds of things that you intend to express in your prayer. And I've heard a great summary that there are 4 words to sort of capture each of these. Wow, oops, thanks, gimme. It was a wow experience to be out in such natural beauty, to be surrounded by, if you will, God's mystery in all of the trees and the wildlife that was teeming around us. It was often an experience where we trusted one another enough to say the oops things, to admit to the areas where we felt broken, where we were really struggling. Those moments of thanks where we were so grateful not only for the time together with each other, but the chance to go deeper, to connect with that deeper reality that Joanna and I each know as God. And those gimme questions that would come up. Not necessarily asking for the latest sports car.
A pony!
But strength for the challenges we were facing. Moments of discernment to figure out what our next step in our life and our ministry might be.
And I've brought Eric here. I call this my pond, although it's not. It's several miles from my house. And by myself, I frequently take what I call prayer walks. And that's something that I do in a solitary way, just by myself. But what I learned in doing this with Eric is that there is something to having a prayer partner or a soul friend, someone who you're going to connect with on a regular basis. For one thing, there's the accountability.
Amen.
Because any sort of spiritual practice, I'll admit it on myself, it often falls to the bottom of my priority list.
Same here.
And also calling each other out on some of the conclusions that we might come to. We frequently would do that, where one of us would say, I'm really thinking this, and the other person would say, Really?
That's what you're thinking?
Have you thought about this or this or this? And so I think having, not just doing prayer in a vacuum, but having someone who you trust, where you can both be very honest about yourself, knowing that the person is not going to judge you, but by the same token that the person cares about you enough that they are going to, you know, if they think that you're really not thinking about something that you should be, they're going to point it out to you.
There are times when little doses of spiritual tough love can be really good for us. And having a regular partner, someone who we know each other well enough and are used to going deeper with each other, that gives us the trust, the openness, the space where when those moments come up, we can do that. And when we don't allow ourselves that, we don't allow ourselves those opportunities to go deeper. It's too easy to stay on the surface.
So a couple of years ago, one of the big things both of us were in discernment about was what our future was going to be in ministry. And it happened that Eric's he was going to go into interim ministry, and so he would be moving several states away. And I think both of us were kind of bummed. You know, I was excited for you, you were excited for you, but
what's this going to mean for our prayer practice?
Right.
We're not going to be 2 hours away, we're going to be 2 days away. You can't find a middle space and just take an afternoon to go meet.
And now, for those who know us and know how active we are with social media and doing things online, y'all can now laugh at us because I think it took us several weeks of kind of grieving that before I think we both at the same time kind of went, wait, they have this thing called the internet now.
Yeah. We can like see each other real time.
Like this.
Absolutely.
And once a month we have a Skype prayer partners meeting. Now during the rest of the month we're often texting or emailing and things like that, but we set aside a dedicated time and we continue using books. We finished with the Now book, and now we're using one of Brene Brown's books and going through it piece by piece, examining our place in the world, in our other relationships, and with the great transcending mystery.
Amen. It's been so wonderful to continue this deep connection, even though we're now more than 1,000 miles apart, because we build on that conversation. The conversation doesn't feel interrupted. Maybe we put it on pause for a couple of weeks, but we don't have to start over because we only see each other once or twice a year. We're connecting with each other regularly from that basis of deep trust and having done some deep discernment, prayerful conversations together. And somehow God stays in the mix, even in the Skype connection.
Yeah, and we, I think, always end these Skype meetings with prayer. And I have to say, you really can pray together thousands of miles apart. And
it can still be deep, just as deepening, just as connecting with that larger spirit, with that transcending mystery, as it is when we're standing right next to each other.
Right. So for any of those who would say that computers are in any way hurting relationships or keeping us from connecting,
not for us.
We don't buy it.